Hello my beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am going to be ranking my recent eyeshadow palettes. I'm very excited to film this video because I do have a really diverse stash of eyeshadow palettes in front of me. I have anything from tiny palettes to luxury large palettes to indie brands to mainstream to monochromatic palettes, colorful, you name it. I think I have it all today, and I am very excited to show you all the palettes, to talk about them, go in deep details, tell you what I liked, what I didn't like. But I do want to make a small disclaimer that none of these palettes are bad. They're actually really good palettes. When I was putting all these eyeshadow palettes into the ranking, I definitely did consider how much inspiration I got from these palettes in this last rotation in the last 2 months, the overall quality, the performance, and how certain palettes compared to the other palettes that I had in the bunch. Keep that in mind and take everything that I say with a grain of salt. We do sometimes have different preferences for things, and that is okay. Before we get started, I would love to welcome new visitors and viewers to my channel. Hi, my name is Eve. I love all things beauty. Here on my channel, I share about beauty and lifestyle. I upload new videos every week, and if that sounds interesting to you, I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel. And now, without further ado, let's dive into monthly eyeshadow palette ranking. I have 10 spots for this ranking, but I have 13 palettes. I grouped some of the palettes together, and once we get to them, I hope it will make sense to you. So most of these palettes were purchased by me. I primarily purchase all my makeup here on my channel. My channel is considerably small still, so I generally do not get too much PR, but there are a few palettes here that were sent to me, and I will pop it here on the screen for you for your information, which was sent to me in PR so you would know. Most of these palettes also have been featured on my channel. I do have some dedicated videos for most of these palettes, I would say. I also do have different look tutorials on my Instagram or on my TikTok. I do have dedicated eyeshadow palettes and tutorial playlists here on my YouTube that you can refer to. And also, of course, you can find more inspirational reels on my Instagram. So let's start from number 10. And number 10, I ended up placing this mini TrioChrome palette from Natasha Denona. We got a colorful eyeshadow palette from Natasha Denona. This is quite colorful. When I saw this palette being previewed, it was a yes, automatic yes for me, because I really love these blues. I like that there are 3 mattes and they're the same formulation, and there are 2 shimmers. One is a lighter one, which works perfectly for your inner corner and brow bone, and this is a TrioChrome. So generally I think that the quality is good, but this palette after all is called TrioChrome, and I definitely expected more shift. I definitely expected more from this specific shade. This shade is beautiful and it has a really nice quality. It's nice and thin. It definitely reflects, it definitely has that beautiful shift. However, it's not as impactful, as strong as I thought it would be. As I do have quite a few of her smaller palettes as well in my collection, and I feel like some of them are very beautiful, very impactful. There are very special shimmers there. So if they could pull that through, I don't hate this palette by all means. I really like it. I think it's beautiful, very easy quality to work with. Blue shades, especially like blue mattes like this, they're not always the easiest to work with, but this palette is just very easy to work with. Very easy to work with, but I just expected more from the shimmers. Next, on spot number 9, I did have a Mirage palette from Alter Ego. We definitely see the resemblance here with the Empowered from Huda Beauty. I do have a dedicated video of this palette with few look tutorials and also comparison to the Huda Beauty palette. I will not be speaking about this palette as a dupe for Huda Beauty. I will just talk about this in its own entity as if Huda never existed. I really like the color story. It's neutral, right? You get a little bit of warmness here. You get a half of the palette that's more cool tone. You get beautiful shimmers, and shimmers are very interesting. They're all kind of like different formulas here, and I really like these 2 cream shades. They work beautifully as eyeliners. They work on skin really well, and they do not budge if you use it as a regular eyeliner. They also go on the waterline very beautifully and stay there. I didn't really encounter any difficulties with this palette. However, in my dedicated video, you might have seen that I experienced a little bit of patchiness with these 2 shades. They are the darkest technically in the palette. However, they do work out very well. It just requires a little extra work, just a few extra steps to pack the color and like slow down on your motions and just really give it a little extra attention. Generally, it is workable and it's not difficult, okay? It just requires extra steps. Generally, I think that this quality is really nice, considerably consistent. You get very interesting shimmer formulas to work with. So the reason why I rank this palette today a little bit towards the end is because, to me personally, this color story entire palette is a little bit limiting. I definitely can create maybe like 3 to 5 looks, so you can definitely create more if you really push yourself. But to me, when I look at this palette, I am comfortable with maybe like 3 to 5 looks, and that's about it. Like, I feel like my inspiration kind of stops there. But the looks that come out of this palette, I really enjoy. I think they're really pretty. Some of them are very like day appropriate, and some of them like very evening appropriate. Like the gold shades are very beautiful and sparkly, reflective. So you definitely can even do like the festive look, right? Like the holidays are coming up. So this more neutral shade is very pretty, and the gold ones are just also very, very beautiful. But I just feel like this palette is a little bit limiting, but there's really nothing wrong with the quality, and the palette itself is really nice. So the next spot on the ranking took the NOMAD palette from Sigma Beauty. I really like the packaging. It reminds me of like this very romantic, like sensual boudoir, like beautiful velvet. I feel like it's hard for you guys to see this because of the reflective background. As you can see, this is a pretty monochromatic palette, but Sigma Beauty is generally one of my favorite formulas in my collection. I just, both mattes and shimmers. I also really love that the shimmer formulas are different. You get your classic original shimmers, and then you get your toppers. The toppers from Sigma Beauty were the first topper formula that I've ever tried. Now it's definitely one of my favorites. I still keep it very close to my heart. I have most of the palettes from Sigma Beauty of this size, and I have some of their minis and some of the Disney collaborations, but I really, really like Sigma formula generally. I think it's very user-friendly, and it's very nice, blendable and buildable, you know, all that good stuff. But this specific palette leans on a cooler side, and then a good portion of this palette, especially like this section right here in the middle, it's more like mauve, but on me pulls very purple. I'm not the biggest fan of purple shades. However, I do think that they look good on me. This is a season where I feel comfortable reaching for my cooler tones, or something that's within this type of scale. So that being said, for the past few weeks, I've been reaching for this palette just naturally. I really just specifically went to my drawer looking for this palette because this just gives me very, very soft mauve, but a little bit of hint of purple. So it's not like a full-blown purple look. But in that matter, I feel like this palette is unique. I don't really have a lot of palettes like that would be kind of those mauves, but again, like leaning a tiny bit purple. And I think this palette is special in its own way. And the formula is just so pleasant to work with. Enjoy my looks that come out of this. I feel like they're just very beautiful, and a little bit of touch of like soft glam to them. The shimmers, and especially the topper shades, they're just so like twinkling on your eyes. You know, they're a little bit, they pick up on the lighting so beautifully. I think you get the gist why I like this palette. And the reason why I rank this a little bit lower is because it is pretty curated color story. It's pretty monochromatic. So I only reach to this palette in specific time of the year, like fall and more so in winter. You can definitely differentiate your looks a little bit, but somewhat it's quite similar. So on the spot number next, it pains me, you guys. It really pains me to say what I'm about to say about this palette, but I have to be honest with you. So on this spot, I have to put Angelica Nyqvist and Odin's Eye Trick or Treat palette. And I have to say that the design of this palette is spectacular. Every time I took out this palette to use, I always took a second to stare at the design because it's just so detailed, so beautiful. Like whoever created this, the imagination is through the roof. Stunning. The color story is so much fun. So obviously this was their collaboration for Halloween, and I know how excited Angelica was to launch this because that was like her first Halloween in America. So it was just like very, very special memory for her as well, and special experience. So the launch included like 2 different palettes and some lip products. I picked up the lip products, and which I'm very much loving, and I only picked up this palette out of 2. This color story appealed to me a little bit more. I definitely enjoy some of these like burgundies and mossy greens and like mustard yellows. So the perimeter of this palette is definitely more of my comfort zone, and some of this pop shades in the middle I definitely was drawn to because of the season. And the orange and red are definitely unique to my collection. I do not have a lot of those shades in my collection. So when I saw this palette, I was like, yeah, definitely. This is just definitely something new, something different that I can add to my stash. And also I wanted to be supportive of Angelica. I've been following her channel for a few years now, and I think she's a wonderful person. She is very talented, very inspirational, and I do enjoy her as a person and her channel content. However, I am considerably new to Odin's Eye. I only tried their formula this year. As you remember, I tried their mystery boxes for Easter, and then I purchased both of the palettes from their launch in summer. I think it was a June launch or May launch. Stone and Rock and Jewels and Gems palette. Both of those palettes are just through the roof, amazing, like top notch, like top of the top. I was definitely still curious about the brand. I'm still curious about the brand because I feel like the palettes that were Stone and Rock and Jewels and Jam, they were just such an exceptional quality. What I've tried earlier, you know, for Easter in my mystery box, I was not really impressed by. So I was like, yeah, there's a vast difference between the quality of the products that I've tried so far. So I was curious about the brand as it is. And when this palette was launched, I was like, yes, of course I want to support the creator that I enjoy, but I also am curious about the brand. Is this the same formula that was in Stone and Rock and Jewels and Jam palette? I'm just going to say, I'm not, of course, a cosmetic chemist. I did not go and dig through and compare every single ingredient in every single shadow, but on the performance, when I was applying the shades, especially the mattes, they do not feel the same. They feel a little bit drier than the ones in the previous launch. So of course, this is a collaboration, maybe different formula when they're collaborating in the creative product versus their full collections, like their permanent collections. So that could be also the case, but I did find that this matte formulas was drier. It required a little bit more blending, a little bit more work, but it is workable, it is beautiful, and there's no patchiness or anything like that. I also experienced a little bit of unfortunate event with a few of the shimmers. So some of the shimmers have a little bit more glitter particles in them, and they irritated my eyes. My eyes were like all swollen the next morning. So unfortunately, as much as I like this palette and as much as I wanted to like it, and I really like this color story, I think it's just so much fun. You do get like your full basics, let's say, and even some of the shades like burgundies and greens I use all year round. And like even this row is so much fun, like the mustards and browns, like so beautiful. You know, after I experienced that swelling on my eyes, I definitely am not eager to reach for the same shades that caused me that. However, I still will be reaching for this palette because this color story inspires me, and these are my colors. I definitely see so many different looks that I want to create with this, but there are definitely some shimmers that I probably will be skipping going forward. So in the spot number 6, I put Nomad Air from Nomad Cosmetics. This mini 6-pan palette was a part of a beautiful launch that was inspired by the airline and flying and traveling, and the execution was just so much fun. First of all, Nomad team, if you're watching, thank you. Thank you for creating this because this is an essential item. I am speaking as a neutrals lover, like big time neutrals lover. I travel with neutral makeup most of the time, okay? Once in a while, I would take something colorful, but most of the time it's neutral, some type of neutral palette. So when I opened this palette, I was like, this is so perfect. Like, this is so perfect, and you get Nomad eyeshadow formula. This palette has no duds. The quality of all these 6 shades is just so spot on beautiful. The mattes are to die for, just generally. Nomad matte eyeshadow formula is one of my favorites. It's just such a jam to work with. The way this matte formula is right now, in this palette or even like in their other palettes that I've tried, I hope they will never change it because it's purely perfection to me. It's pigmented, it's blendable, it's easy to work with. It's just so beautiful on eyes. Shimmers here are beautiful. They are super creamy, they're soft, they're reflective, they're smooth on lids. I did create a look tutorial on my Instagram with this entire palette using all 6 shades. I also appreciated their different undertones of shimmers. This is a little bit more gold, this is a little bit more like rosy, and you get a little bit of like darker shade here, which you can create a beautiful smoky eye out of that and turn your day looks into the night looks literally with this swipe of a finger. So I have a lot of appreciation for this palette. Also, it is a cardboard packaging. You do get a mirror, so it's very light. So if you're traveling with just a small bag or like a weekender or carry-on or something like that, that you kind of watching out for the weight, this is awesome palette to travel with. I just think it was super fun launch. Nomad is one of the brands that I also tried first time this year, and I have been impressed. The theming, the execution, just how fun everything is. They really are so thoughtful with their theming and no corners are cut. Everything is just so thoughtfully made and so carefully thought about to like the last T. Very impressed with the brand. Definitely want to try more things in the future, and I am very excited what's next in store for them. So in spot number 5, I do have a few palettes. I have 3 palettes to talk about because I used them all for Halloween this year. And I was telling you that I was going to be Beetlejuice for this year's Halloween party, and I did pull this through. I wanted to be Beetlejuice for a very long time, and it finally happened this year. So I've been playing around with different makeups in my collection, and I ended up using these 3 palettes for my makeup look, and that's why I wanted to talk about them together. It's not like I've used all these palettes, you know, throughout the last 2 months. No, it was just a specific event. It was so exciting for me that I'm definitely including all these 3 palettes as like a bunch because it all came out to one look. You obviously know Beetlejuice, the character, and very messy, very loud, very obnoxious. I definitely wanted to do like a messy looking look, but kind of with a touch of glam. My boyfriend was Jim Carrey's character from the Mask movie, and he had to paint his face green. You know, I definitely pulled out some of the gems here from my collection to help him with his makeup, so we had a blast. Long story short, back to the palettes. For my makeup look, I primarily used this gem of a palette. You guys already know how much I like it. This is Hocus Pocus 2 from Colourpop. This palette made an appearance quite a few times here on my channel when we were talking about a different eyeshadow palettes. So I used this purple primarily as a main base for my look, and then I used this green shimmer shade in my inner corner. I also also use it as my highlighter on my cheekbones and like on my nose. I use these two shades to contour my face, kind of give myself a little bit of like some shadow and like contour my nose, a little bit of my cheekbones, so there's some definition, so I don't look like Casper. I actually wanted to look like Beetlejuice. I also use this dark green shade to kind of staple on top of my face and create like the dirty effect. And then I also dipped into Fade into Hue palette from Colourpop. It's my only rainbow palette in my collection, and I definitely reach for it. I definitely keep it in my collection for a reason, because whenever I need one of these like super primary, like bright colors, I reach for this palette. I don't really use any of these shades on a daily basis. This is one of those creative moments, Halloween looks. When occasion like that comes out, I definitely think of reaching to this palette. So I also dipped into this purple shade and this light pink shade for just a light transition. And I also borrowed this palette to my boyfriend, and yeah, it looks a little bit disastrous because I think he was using like a bigger brush, and I definitely need to find a way to clean this. But everything worked out beautifully. This palette definitely is a really good colorful palette. It has a really beautiful punchy pigment that does not budge. Whatever you want to do with it, I think it's a really good palette for fun occasions like that, for fun, colorful looks. And I also did tell you that there are 3 palettes in this number. Natasha Denona My Dream palette also had to make an appearance. I had to specifically dip into this duochrome shade, which is like purple green type. So as soon as I did my purple makeup, I was like, you know, my favorite palette is gonna tie all these loose ends up and just pull this entire look together. So I applied the shade all over my lid, and I also had a black matte lipstick, and I applied the shade in the center of my lips to create that purplish green effect, and I thought it just tied the entire look together. I had so much fun with that makeup. So these 3 palettes were perfect companions for each other. So on the spot number 5, again, I have 2 palettes, and these are the palettes. Both of the palettes are currently in my fall eyeshadow palette wardrobe. That video is already live on my channel. I posted it, I think, back in September. So the basket with all the fall eyeshadow palettes is right here, right next to me. So I just reach for those palettes whenever I need something quick and easy and beautiful, sometimes glam, sometimes colorful. So these 2 palettes, the reason why I'm talking about them together, because they're technically the same color story. So I have Nouveau palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and I have Midsummer from Alter Ego. So they are the same color stories. This one is a little bit more compact. So I used both of these this past 2 months because these are just easy palettes to work with. And I really love the undertones of this color story, and I just really love the effect. Everything is like beautiful and smooth, easy to work with, and just fits into the season. Just generally, you already know how I feel about this color story. It's just one of those super universal color stories that just covers your bases. You get a little bit of like warmness, you get some cooler tones, you get some colors and beautiful shimmers, a little bit of depth and palette. There are definitely different formulas in these palettes, but they are just so effortless. I've traveled with this palette already several times, and I am not disappointed. I think I've spoken about these 2 palettes right next to each other quite a few times already. It's because I equally love them, and that's why I keep talking about them. They're, like I said, different formulas, but they're equally good in their performance and their quality. I just love the color story. It has everything for your quick go-to looks. You can definitely make it a little bit more glam if you wanted to, but I just really like these 2. So on the spot number 3, I have a Divine Rose 2 Mothership palette from Pat McGrath, and I recently did a video where I created the look for you guys. It was a chit-chatty, get ready with me video, and you guys requested this palette in the video, which I was very happy about, because this is a palette that I really, really like. I really like the color story, and for that video, I did do like, let's just say, my signature look, the ones that I recreated many times for myself, like in real life. And I think it's just really easy formula to work with. I think the quality in this palette is gorgeous, and you definitely get some of like the basic colors here. Like if you look at the side of the palette, it's a little bit more, you know, like your neutral basics, rosy tones type, and then you get this like really bright, fun, powerful shimmers here, the ones that definitely like change the looks if you needed to create like gold look or bright pink. This shifty multi-chrome is very, very pretty. Also feels a luxury. It gives you like that luxury experience when you use it. The looks in person look beautiful. When I was using this on camera for that recent video, I did tell you guys that my look looks a little bit more basic on camera than it does look in person. It was definitely more beautiful in person because you would see the reflect of the eyeshadows a little bit better. So on spot number 2, I do have a palette that I just continue to be pleased with, okay, since the day I got it. This is Sugar and Grunge from where's this Russian accent of mine came out. So here I have Sugar and Grunge from Blend Bunny Cosmetics. What a beautiful palette. So this palette was a summer launch from the brand, and when I looked at it first time, I was like, yeah, this is a larger palette, and I try not to buy larger palettes at the moment. However, I was like, I want to know the brand, I want to try their formula, and this color story is very, very intriguing because first of all, you see this gradient of shades of mattes, and the way I like to blend my mattes, I usually use like 3-4 complementing mattes to blend my base of the looks to create that smoother transitions. And this palette just delivers you perfection. There's like no fail, foolproof situation here. This type of layout just sets you for success. The shimmers are so beautiful. There are not too many of them, but they make sense. Every single look that I created, either I did a monochromatic look or I mixed a rose together. I never felt like I didn't have enough shimmers. I always feel like, yep, I'm gonna use this one. Yep, this is perfect for that. I never felt like I was lacking anything. I really like the formula of mattes and shimmers. Very, very solid, high quality formulas. So what I see in this palette is the entire year of opportunities. I see different looks for every season throughout the year. And that's why I've been keeping this palette very close to me since summer, because I want to push the boundaries. I want to see if I just naturally gravitate to this palette because of the looks that I want to create during the season. And so far, I have not been disappointed. The other day, I wanted to wear something to the office that was I wanted a little bit of color on my eye. I wanted something like burgundy, but I didn't want it to be like super powerful burgundy look. And I went with this transition shade, and I added this in my inner corner, and I did this shimmer on my lid and this in the inner corner. You guys, I love that look so much. It was just so like comfortably colorful. Is there such thing like comfortably colorful? These mattes here are just so easy to work with. If you wanted them to be super packed and build up to full intensity, you definitely can. But if you want just a little bit of wash of color, you definitely can do that too. And I have a lot of appreciation for formulas like that. So far this palette's been checking all the boxes. This palette is also in my full eyeshadow palette stash, and I am still, testing this and pushing its limits and see what this palette brings to the table. And so far, like I said, it's checking every single box on the list. So now we got to the #1 spot, you guys, and I don't know if you have any guesses. I probably would not guess myself if I had to, but here I got my first NOMAD Cosmetics palette with collaboration with Heather Austin. This is a palette that was relaunched for the fall season again. So when this palette was initially launched, I definitely thought that this palette was beautiful, and all these shades are super appealing to me. Even like the mattes are beautiful, and the shimmers are gorgeous. Half of these shimmers are duochromes and multichromes, and they're just so stunning. So this palette is on my eyes today. This palette took the first spot today, right, for a reason. Besides the color story, I am very impressed by the quality of the shimmers more so. There are only 4 mattes here in this palette, and they're kind of pared down here so you can create somewhat cohesive looks. Majority of this palette, the heavy load of this palette are shimmers. The matte formula is nice. It's very workable, it's beautiful, it's pigmented, all the good things. It's very nice, but it's not extraordinary. What's extraordinary in this palette are definitely shimmers. The shimmers are very special. I think it's going to be a pretty fair statement if I say that these shimmers are one of the most beautiful in my collection right now. It's a very big statement because there's some formulas in my collection that I keep very, very close to my heart. And this palette appeared now in my collection and was like, excuse me, you all can move to the side. This is, with no exaggeration, spectacular formula. And this is not even including the fact that most of these shades are multichromes or duochromes. They're very complex, they're special, they're reflective. The shimmer shades here are very pigmented, they're opaque. They give you like this beautiful opacity of color, but they're also very thin, which is mind-blowing. Like, how do you have such a thin formula that gives you full opacity, such a beautiful, gorgeous, like glossy, mirrory reflect? If I would have to define a glam palette, this will definitely be on my top list of glam options. And in the past, when I was looking at the options of the palettes, I'm like, yeah, well, there are not too many mattes, there are so many shimmers, it's totally worth buying their shimmer palettes. I'm just gonna say it like that. There's sometimes there are formulas, they're like, yeah, this is so beautiful, but it kind of reminds me of something that I may already have in my collection. This is like nothing else. Not even comparable, nowhere near. I can't even compare it to anything else in my collection. This palette is definitely a very special addition to my eyeshadow family here. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap up my video here. This is my entire ranking of the eyeshadow palettes. I hope you enjoyed it and enjoy my company today. Let me know if you have any of these palettes, if you love them as much as I do or don't. I do the eyeshadow palette rankings on a monthly basis. I do have a lot of other content related to eyeshadow palettes here on my channel. If you enjoy eyeshadow palette content of all sorts, I will leave some of the playlists for you to enjoy at the end of this video and also in the description box. If you enjoyed this video, give this a big thumb up. And if you're not yet a subscriber, I invite you to subscribe to my channel before you leave today. Thank you so much for watching, hanging out with me today, and I will see you in my next videos.